I didn't sleep after the first night the messages appeared. I was too busy learning how to breathe between rules. The blue tape lines I'd placed around the apartment, under the TV, along the closet jamb, beneath the bathroom mirror, on the balcony slider, around the base of my ring light, weren't decorations. They were verbs. When I said the rule out loud, the verbs held the world in place like fingers on a pulse. The blue line is a boundary and not a door. I whispered every time I crossed the hallway, and the air behaved. For a while. By morning, the other me, the one who'd fallen through a broken seam between servers, had slept inside the ring of my light the way a voice sleeps in a microphone when you power it off. Still present, only quiet. He wrote in the boundary logger as soon as my monitor woke. I'm here. I can hold another day if the lights stay honest. Did it try your door again? I didn't say yes. I didn't need to. The faint white scrape on the front door at eye level, the kind you usually blame on moving a dresser, was a new scar. It hadn't been there last week. We spent the day mapping. The logger clattered with coordinate pairs that meant more to him than to me. I gave him human landmarks. He returned math. The corner where the router blinked counted as a jitter pocket, a place where packets hesitated, which in his world was a place where you could stand between frames, while the listener, the sentinel, searched for your outline in the static. The metal lip of the kitchen sink was edge bright, a good place to test if a line was honest. The red ceramic bowl on the counter looked normal to me and nauseating to him, he said, because in his server red was an instruction. Red meant aggressive pathing. He asked me not to leave the bowl near any blue tape because it felt like a dare to the wrong audience. We established a routine. I ate. I worked. I checked the edges. I spoke the boundary rule in a normal tone when I could, and softer when it felt like the apartment was straining to hear me say it. I didn't film any of it. Not even for a story time later. It wasn't superstition. It was respect. If eyes make things real on this side, cameras make them proud. Around 5 p.m., the air learned a new hum. The kind you feel in your jaw, not your ears. The ring light brightened without me touching it. The logger printed a line that tripped like a heartbeat on stairs. Third try incoming. I put my palm on the blue tape strip along the balcony door and counted down with my breath. The first try nudged the perspective of the street lamp outside. The second try slowed the clock on the microwave by 1 second I could see. On the third, my name whispered itself from the doormat as if the core had learned to speak. My heart spiked. I nearly answered out of reflex. Don't, the logger typed. That's it, learning your echo. If you speak when the house speaks you, it inherits the rhythm. It's how it steals breath. I mouthed the rule instead, silent, exaggerated, like a person practicing foreign vowels. The blue line felt warm under my hand. It stayed a boundary. It didn't become a door. That night, when the apartments on either side quieted and the street stopped arguing with itself, the other me said something he hadn't before. There's a way to send me home, he wrote. I didn't tell you because it opens you to me and me to you at the same time. If we're wrong, it invites the listener as a guest. If we're right, it closes the seam behind me like a zipper. We won't get another try. How? I said aloud, even though I typed it too. In my server, spawn isn't a place, it's a rule. You tell the world where you begin, and if the world agrees, you begin there. Your world also has spawn, you just call it something else. Rituals. Passwords. Home. The spot where your body remembers what upright means. We'll need a circle and an honest light and a map that is both true and not complete. I already had the circle and the light. What map? Draw your apartment from memory, he typed. Not perfectly. If you draw it perfectly, it becomes a level and the listener will speedrun it. Draw the parts you love and the parts you forget. Put a blue line on it at G0 and say the rule once for every door you've ever closed in anger. The instructions hit places I didn't want touched. I dug out printer paper and a dull pencil. I drew the living room bigger than it is, like I wish it were. I drew the kitchen narrower, like it feels at 2 a.m. when you're mad at no one and want the fridge to understand. I included the lip in the hallway where the baseboard has split, and I haven't fixed it because its imperfection feels like a notch on a sword. Proof it's been used. I drew the closet seam as an asterisk instead of a line. When I finished, the apartment on paper looked like the apartment that talks to me in dreams where rooms repeat. I pressed a small strip of blue tape on the rectangle where my desk sits and whispered, "The blue line is a boundary and not a door," 5 times. once for each slam that rattled the picture frame since I moved in. I felt silly. I felt less silly when the tape's blue steadied, like a bird deciding to stay on your railing. Good, the logger wrote. Now place the map in the circle. Turn the light to the lowest honest, and stand so I can stand in your shoulders. I will count. On 6, I'll step. You'll say the rule on the word is, not before, not after. What happens if? If we miss, the listener learns where both of us end, he said. We'll become audio to it, something it can scrub through. Ready? I swallowed, then nodded as if he could see my head and not just the tremble in my typing. I set the hand-drawn map on the floor within the ring light, adjusted the brightness until it was nearly a memory, and stepped so my shadow cut the circle in half. The other me leaned into the circle from the inside. I felt the weight of him, not his body, his intention, like a second layer of posture added to mine. He counted with finger taps through the logger, and I felt them on my own knuckles, ghosts pressing keys I wasn't pressing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He hesitated on 5. The apartment did, too, as if the house knew a trick was afoot and wanted to hear how we executed it. 6. The blue line is a boundary and not a door. Something tightened behind my eyes. The circle became deep. For one sick half-second, my knees wanted to turn in opposite directions, like my skeleton remembered 2 different versions of walking and couldn't decide which to call true. The ring light popped, not burned out, but like the bulb blinked across languages. The map lifted from the floor as if a draft came from the underside of the paper. It folded down a corner by itself, as if pointing to a move we had not drawn. A hand, my hand that was not mine, pushed through the light, skin stippled like a texture with too few bits but too much detail. The palm met the air. It found the weight there. Fingers slid along the blue tape, stand the way a diver's hand slides along a rope. I smelled warm plastic, like a new console fresh from the box. I'm coming, the logger wrote. Hold your shoulders. Keep your breath on the second step. It's a ladder we made from rules. Then the listener noticed. It didn't knock. The front door pin bowed inward the smallest amount a pin can bow without snapping. The blue tape on the door flashed. A sound like particles colliding rang from the doorknob, a microscopic bell you hear with the bones of your teeth. The hallway outside fainted toward the threshold, the way views do in video games when someone toggles FOV too far. The map inside the ring tensed like a mouse when a hawk's shadow crosses the yard. The logger rattled. One more step. You must say the second rule. What second rule? There has always been a second rule, he typed in a blur. We didn't need it until now. Say. The blue line notices names and does not repeat them unless invited. The knock came again without knocking. In my head, the word that lives under the word open stirred. I locked my jaw against it. The blue line notices names and does not repeat them unless invited, I said, and the ring shivered, and the doorknob turned enough that light caught the metal like an eye rolling sideways to check on me. It stopped. The pin in the door frame breathed again, straightening. The blue tape on the door cooled. I'm half here, he wrote, and the words smeared a little, as if the signal danced between servers with one sock on. He wasn't lying. I felt in the way you feel a bruise before you touch it. The space in front of me contained 2 bodies worth of posture. When I swallowed, another throat swallowed a millimeter after mine. There was a second heartbeat in the ring, steady, not echoing me, his own. Move your fingers, he said, and I did, and the other fingers moved, and there was a half frame of lag, and then a correction. Our hands synchronized like 2 cursors agreeing on a point in space. He stepped into me. It wasn't possession. It felt like handing your jacket to a friend who is cold, except the jacket was my outline, and the friend was a version of me who had learned to count triangles to stay alive. The ring dissolved. The map slid back to the floor with a soft, papery sound that made my nerves jolt with relief. In the bathroom mirror down the hall, 2 of me stood for the briefest time, one solid, one a glass memory, and then the glass closed, and there was one. Talk, I said, testing my mouth. Talk, he said at the same time, same mouth. Our voices overlapped like a chorus where one singer is slightly braver. We're double, he said. Good. That means if it names you, it has to pick which pronoun to chase. We have to close it, I said. Me nodded. We will, but first we give it something to do that isn't us. The balcony glass leaned as if the wind outside had shouldered it. No wind. The night was syrup. The listener didn't like losing a line. It wanted another offering. The other me reached for the map and pressed his palm down where I'd marked the TV. We need a decoy. Honest light that tastes like a door until it eats itself. The thing loves appetites. How do we make one? We don't. We bait it with the rules we already have. He lifted the map, tore a clean strip of blue tape from the roll, and put it across the paper where my drawing of the TV stood. He said the first rule and the second, the words precise but gentle, the way you speak to a cat who only pretends to ignore meaning. The line is a boundary, not a door. It notices names and doesn't repeat them unless invited. He added, almost under his breath, the third rule, blue lines aren't stories. If you break them, they don't entertain you. A shiver of revulsion went through the glass. It didn't like being told it couldn't narrate me. The third? I said, surprised by the whine in my voice. He smiled the way I smile at bad timing. I didn't tell you everything yesterday. If you know too many rules, you become more rule than person. Rules are sharp, but I need you soft. I need you human. He picked up the map. Now we put this where it wants to look anyway. He slid the balcony door open 2 inches. The blue tape on the edge hummed in protest, but held. He jammed the drawn TV, with its crude blue strip, into the gap like a slice in a toaster. The night breathed on the paper. A darker dark gathered around the outline of the drawn screen. The listener tested the decoy with a sound like a USB plugging and unplugging. The paper twitched. The blue strip on the drawing shone like the real tape does when it's thirsty for a rule. He closed the door softly. It'll chew that line for a while. It knows it's not real, but it also knows that realness is a thing that happens to objects we believe in. The more we describe a decoy, the more it fattens. That buys us how long? Long enough, he said, to stitch the seam you opened last night and make it look like a scar. In my world, scars hold. We worked. He guided my hands with my own hands, which sounds simple until you try to be both student and teacher in the same skin. He had me wet our fingertips and pull at the ragged edge of the tear in the wall by the closet. The menu gloss resisted because it liked being relevant. We spoke the rules around it in different orders. We told it stories where it was boring. We told it the history of paint drying. We praised the fine art of waiting. The seam gave grudgingly, shrinking the way a mouth decides not to argue after all. The logger sat quiet on the desk, an empty chat window with a memory of someone in it. I missed his messages even as he stood inside me. Familiar is a drug the body makes for itself. The ring light, now only a ring, watched. While we worked, he told me things. Little things you say when your hands have to move slow. How his server smells like old coins when it rains. How the first time he tried to sleep after he fell through, he forgot that blinking wasn't loading. How he didn't know his own face until he saw mine on a pause stream the day before he found the exit. You were drinking from a chipped mug, he said, smiling with my mouth. The chip in the rim is the exact size of a polygon I used to hide behind. I recognized the shape the way you recognize a scar on a friend's knuckle. I told him little things back. The way the radiators in this building sigh before they heat, like they're tired of the work. The way the neighbor 2 floors up sings to their cat with made-up words that accidentally fit. The way I used to fall asleep with my head at the foot of the bed when I was a kid because it felt like waking up somewhere else meant maybe the day would be different. Around midnight, the balcony paper crackled. We both looked. The decoy map had browned at the corners like paper under a magnifying glass. The blue strip across the drawn TV flickered, then held. The listener had eaten its own interest and gotten full enough to rest. Predators sleep, too. Now, he said, the clothes. He led me to the closet, to the blue tape jam, to the seam that wasn't one anymore, but would never be simply would again. You say the rule, he said. You made it true first. You give it the last stitch. I put my palm to the tape. It was warm again, not from the room's heat, but like a word spoken a lot, a word with company. The blue line is a boundary and not a door, I said. It notices names and doesn't repeat them unless invited. It is not a story. It will not entertain. It will warn. The seam listened. The seam settled. The house let out a breath through the floorboards. The other me eased backward in my shoulders like a person stepping off a curb in the dark and finding the road isn't as low as the body predicted. Did it work? I asked. Yes, he said, but he didn't sound relieved. He sounded careful. Mostly. He looked at the balcony. The decoy map caved in at last, the paper curling, the blue tape on the drawing slackening as if the adhesive had remembered glue is a story too. The knight on the other side leaned close. It couldn't come in. It could lay its face on the glass and breathe the word glass, so hard the glass forgot it had ever been called anything else. It can't take us now, he said. Not by the door, not by the seam. But it learned our apartment's shape even as we told it not to name us. It knows the rhythm we move in. We could move, I said, and didn't mean it. The idea of uprooting while you still wore someone else's outline was a different kind of terror. He shook my head no gently. It follows servers, not leases. The next place would have doors, too. He took a breath that echoed mine, and then didn't. We'll be okay. We will. As long as we keep the rules honest and don't teach it any we can't keep. We stood quietly until the night outside lost interest in pretending to be interesting. The decoy crisped to ash smell without ash. The ring light flickered once, then steadied. I felt tired in a new way, the tired that comes after speaking the truth out loud for hours. Will you stay? I asked. Or can you go home now? He smiled with the corner of our mouth that always refuses to admit good news is allowed. I'm halfway home, he said. I can find the rest from the inside. But I have to cross at a place we didn't mark. Something that's both inside and out. Not your door, not your window. The seam that rides with you. My phone, I said. It wasn't a guess. The phone had lived face down for days like a shy animal. It had also vibrated without notifications when the hallway bent wrong. It was both mirror and window, both toy and tool, both my face and a stranger's. The listener loved surfaces. My phone was a pocket of them. He nodded. We make a tiny blue line in code, not tape. A sentence you only ever think, not speak. Then I step through it while the phone sleeps with the light on. It sounded like a preacher's trick. It sounded like a hack. It sounded like faith, which is the name we give to rules that hold even when no one's watching. Tell me the sentence, I said. He didn't. He took my hand and put it on my own chest, right above the name of my shirt, and said, no, you tell it. It has to be yours. If I give you mine, you'll inherit my bugs. I swallowed. The apartment hummed its late-night electric hive song. The ring light put a white coin on the floor. I thought of everything I'd named wrong. Fear called boredom, love called habit, loneliness called freedom. I thought of all the lines I'd crossed without asking and all the doors I'd refused to open when someone I loved knocked. Then I picked a sentence the size of a seed and planted it in my head where it could grow roots in the part of me that touches nothing and somehow holds the rest together. I won't write the sentence here. If I do, the listener will learn its shape the way it learned my name off the doormat. Some things you keep folded under your tongue like a secret candy that keeps you awake on a long drive. He heard it without me speaking. That was the point. Good, he said, and there was a rawness in the word that felt like goodbye pressed between 2 pages to keep its shape. Keep it. Give it light once a day. If you forget and the house goes quiet, it will remember you. How will I know if you made it? You'll hear the ring light click 1 time in daylight when it's off, he said. You'll think it's nothing. It won't be. Don't say my name when it happens. Say the first rule and go drink water. That will be my hello. He lifted my phone from the desk. The screen stayed black. He turned it in his hands, not to admire it, but to feel where the weight hit its bias. He breathed the way swimmers do before dipping under. He put the phone face down in the ring of the light and laid his palm flat on its back. The room compressed without moving. My tongue went thick. He closed my eyes. In the red behind my lids, a bright square opened, not light, not dark, the color of counting. I felt him step. For a heartbeat. It was like watching someone kneel at the edge of a river and disappear not into the water, but into the idea of water at night. The ring light ticked, a tiny thermal sound you could blame on cooling plastic if you didn't know better. The phone warmed under my palm, then cooled, then became a phone again, dumb and loyal. I opened my eyes. The room had not moved. The blue lines stayed lines. The seam by the closet was still a scar. The balcony listener breathed once on the glass, and the glass did not translate. The logger window on my monitor was empty. I was alone in my outline again in a way I hadn't realized I'd missed until I got it back. I waited. I didn't speak. I listened to day creep toward night's marrow and night creep back. I waited until my knees unlocked themselves from the place they'd chosen to stiffen. I waited until I laughed once, stupidly, because laughing meant nothing was choosing my mouth for me. And then the ring light clicked. Once, in daylight, while off, I exhaled poetry, the bad kind. Then I said the rule, out loud, firm, like a person reminding a muscle it knows how to do its job. The blue line is a boundary and not a door, I said, and my ribs learned to be a cage again and not a net. For 3 days, nothing knocked. I carried the phone like it weighed fate. I kept the sentence in my head like a penny in your shoe when you're a kid and want a reason to run home faster. I spoke the rules to the tape when I crossed lines, even if crossing them was routine. The house's normal noises put their costumes back on. The neighbor's shower sang travel songs in the pipes. The fridge made the old man cough that means defrosting in fridge. The balcony glass collected smudged fingerprints, and the sun pretended it had always been brave enough to light the face of my door. On the 4th day, my phone buzzed 3 times at 3:03 a.m. I stared at the screen in bed without touching it. The light didn't come on, which should be impossible. The buzzings were spaced like steps. The boundary logger wasn't open because I'd powered my computer down on purpose. Sleeping screens are less interesting. The room held its breath politely, the way rooms do when they know you're about to read the message that decides your week. I picked up the phone. There was no notification bubble, no text, no missed call. Only a new folder floating in the Files app with a name that looked like an error until you saw the pattern in the symbols, /G0/return. My thumb hovered. I whispered the first rule to the blue tape on my nightstand lamp, like you check if your friend is awake without sounding scared. I opened the folder. Inside, a single image file with a name that was also a question and also a map coordinate. 16_down_fog. PNG. I tapped. The screen bloomed gray. Then a hallway appeared, too clean to be mine, too scuffed to be a showroom. On the left wall, someone had drawn a blue line that was not quite blue, like the memory of blue if you only ever saw it under red lights. Under the line, there were words in my handwriting, is not a door. The picture was taken from the height of my eyes. At the end of the hall, where the perspective should narrow to a vanishing point, there was a smudge the shape of a person who just took a step. Text popped over the top of the picture the way osses do when they think you want help, but you don't. It read, allow return? My thumb trembled. The sentence in my head, the one I'd planted, stood up like a soldier in the rain and saluted. The blue line rule in my throat lined up beside it. The apartment's night noises watched me with their backs turned. Outside my bedroom door, something that wasn't a knock tried to remember how to knock. The sound it made was worse, polite. The prompt sat on the screen, waiting. Allow return? I didn't answer. Yet.